Before the sea became a route to empire, before harbors promised safety or maps convinced sailors they understood where they were going, there were stretches of water where survival depended on knowing when to stop. Open horizons without landmarks, coasts that offered no mercy, depths where strength meant nothing once balance was lost. In those places, power was not something challenged. It was something to be endured. And one figure oversaw all of it. The Greeks called him Poseidon. He was not a god of cities or laws. He did not rule through councils, treaties, or oaths spoken indoors. His authority was not maintained through order imposed, but through order withdrawn. When the sea cooperated, travel was possible. When it did not, nothing else mattered. Poseidon did not need to appear to be present. His influence was felt first through conditions. Winds shifted without warning. Waves lost their rhythm. The ground beneath coastal cities trembled, reminding them that stability had always been conditional. Unlike gods who required prayer or insult to act, Poseidon's power was already in motion. Mortals depended on him whether they acknowledged him or not. Every voyage, every harbor, every shoreline existed at his discretion. His stories were not built around conquest or triumph. They were built around miscalculation, a moment taken too far, a promise assumed instead of honored, a boundary crossed because it was invisible. To understand Poseidon was to understand how the Greeks imagined danger that could not be reasoned with, only respected. A god whose presence reshaped the world not through constant destruction, but through the quiet certainty that cooperation could end at any moment. This is the story of Poseidon, the god of the sea, the earthshaker, and the force that reminded every shore how fragile it had always been. Before Poseidon ruled the sea, the world was ruled by fear of succession. The Titans held power, and at their head stood Cronus. Cronus understood cycles. He understood that time produced endings as surely as it produced beginnings. When a prophecy reached him, foretelling that one of his children would overthrow him, he did not wait to discover which one it would be. He chose prevention. Each time his sister and wife Rhea gave birth, Cronus swallowed the child whole. There was no rage in the act, no spectacle. It was efficient, repeated, and absolute. Hestia vanished first, then Demeter, then Hera, then Hades. When Poseidon was born, the pattern had already hardened into law. He was consumed immediately, erased before he could claim space or resist. Inside Cronus, there was no world to move through, no sea, no sky, no ground. Power existed without outlet, suspended in time, compressed and denied direction. Poseidon's earliest condition was not freedom or dominance, but containment. Rhea endured the losses until endurance was no longer enough. When her youngest child was born, she hid him and wrapped a stone in cloth, giving it to Cronus in place of the infant. Cronus swallowed it without hesitation, believing the future had been neutralized once again. The child she hid was Zeus. Zeus grew beyond Cronus's reach. When he returned, there was no negotiation. Cronus was forced to release what he had consumed. The swallowed gods emerged fully formed, not as children reclaiming stolen lives, but as beings shaped by betrayal. There was no reconciliation between generations. The rupture was complete. War followed. The Titanomachy was prolonged and destabilizing. Old authority did not fall cleanly. While not every Titan sided with Cronus, the ones that did proved to be a serious challenge. The war spanned 10 years, with neither side willing to surrender. It wasn't until the Olympians freed the Cyclopes and the Hecatonchires, creatures of immense power, size, with 100 arms from their prison, that the scales of power began to sway. The Cyclopes forged divine weapons for the gods, most notably the thunderbolt for Zeus, the trident for Poseidon, and the helm for Hades. With these tools in hand, the Titans were defeated not by mercy, but by force applied without retreat. When the war ended, the world did not return to order, it was redistributed. The victorious brothers divided the realms by lot. Zeus took the sky, Hades took the underworld, Poseidon received the sea. It was not a lesser domain. It touched every shore, every city, every route of travel and war. But it resisted permanence. It refused borders. It could not be fixed in place. Control had to be asserted continuously, or it slipped away. Poseidon accepted the sea, knowing it would never remain still. His authority was shaped by what had been denied to him: movement withheld, power suspended, space controlled by another. The world moved forward only as long as he allowed it to. Poseidon was never imagined as distant or abstract. He was depicted as a god fully grown into his power, broad-shouldered and heavy with strength, his body marked by age rather than youth. He did not appear refined or decorative. His presence suggested force that had been used before and would be used again. The trident was always in his hand. It was not a symbol of rank, it was an instrument. With it, stone split apart, waves surged upward, and the earth itself cracked. When Poseidon held the trident, action felt inevitable, even when he remained still. He was rarely shown at rest. Even in moments of stillness, tension remained in his posture, as though motion had been restrained rather than removed. Calm around Poseidon did not feel peaceful. It felt temporary. When Poseidon entered a place, the world responded before anyone spoke. Water shifted first. Waves lost their rhythm. Currents turned unpredictable. Along the coast, the ground trembled, sometimes subtly, sometimes enough to be felt beneath the feet. These reactions were not commands. They happened without instruction, as though the land and sea recognized authority instinctively. Mortals sensed the change immediately. Ships became harder to steer. Wind no longer behaved as expected. What had been reliable moments earlier became uncertain. Navigation turned into risk. Confidence narrowed into calculation. Those who recognized the shift early sometimes survived by yielding, by turning back, slowing down, or offering restraint. Those who pressed forward as though nothing had changed were not singled out or punished directly. They were simply left in a world that no longer supported them. This was how Poseidon was known across his myths. Not as a god who demanded obedience openly, but as one whose presence rewrote the rules of movement so completely that resistance became irrelevant. Poseidon did not seek balance. He tolerated it only while it held. His temperament was volatile, but it was not careless. He reacted quickly, yet he remembered longer than most gods. Insults did not burn out after a single response. They settled. They waited. Retaliation often arrived after time had passed, when those involved believed the danger had faded and normal movement had resumed. He was sensitive to disregard. A vow left unfulfilled, a harbor taken for granted, a ritual performed incorrectly or skipped entirely. These were not minor oversights, they signaled assumption, an expectation that the sea would cooperate on their terms. When Poseidon acted, the response rarely began with destruction. Storms rose that did not immediately kill. Winds trapped ships in place. Progress slowed, then reversed. Days stretched into weeks as supplies thinned and certainty collapsed. Survival remained possible, but only by the skin of their teeth. The punishment was not always death, it was exposure. Dependence became danger. Poseidon's authority extended beneath the sea as well. As the earthshaker, he fractured the ground itself. Cities collapsed without warning. Walls split. Foundations failed. These events were not treated as accidents or misfortune. They followed neglect, offense, or divine conflict. Stability revealed itself as conditional rather than permanent. He created horses, creatures defined by speed, force, and resistance to restraint. Once set in motion, they outran judgment. Control had to be maintained constantly, or consequences followed. In them, Poseidon admired power that did not stay still. He also fathered and commanded monsters. Some were released deliberately as punishment. Others emerged because boundaries were ignored or responsibilities abandoned. He did not rush to correct these outcomes. Under his authority, danger was not exceptional, it was expected. Poseidon did not require constant devotion to be feared. His power operated whether it was acknowledged or not. Protection existed, but it was conditional and temporary. Those who recognized his authority early were sometimes spared. Those who assumed cooperation instead of permission were left exposed. He did not negotiate once conditions had changed. He did not soften responses once they were underway. The sea worsened. The ground continued to tremble. Pressure remained until acknowledgement was restored or survival failed. Poseidon did not rule people. He ruled the forces of nature. What was allowed to pass, what was delayed, and what was turned back entirely. Poseidon's family was formed by succession, conflict, and unresolved tension long before it became an Olympian order. As we mentioned before, his father was Cronus, the Titan of time, who ruled by attempting to halt the future itself. Knowing that time inevitably produced successors, Cronus swallowed his children at birth, treating existence as rebellion before it could act. Authority, under him, was preserved through containment and fear. His mother was Rhea, the titaness of motherhood, fertility, and generational survival. Where Cronus sought to freeze cycles, Rhea endured them. She continued to give birth despite loss and ensured that succession could not be permanently erased. Poseidon inherited this contradiction, control paired with motion that could never be fully suppressed. Poseidon's siblings defined the structure of divine rule. Zeus, king of the gods and god of the sky and thunder, ruled through hierarchy, oaths, and visible law. Zeus imposed order from above and demanded recognition through structure. Poseidon resented Zeus's supremacy, not because the sea was lesser, but because it surrounded and sustained everything Zeus governed. Their rivalry never resolved, it stabilized under pressure rather than trust. Hades, god of the underworld, ruled finality and enclosure. His domain admitted no return and no expansion. Poseidon's relationship with Hades remained distant but functional. Where Hades governed endings, Poseidon governed uncertainty before the end arrived. Hera, goddess of marriage and legitimate union, enforced lawful bonds and continuity. Poseidon's behavior repeatedly undermined what she represented, forming unions without stability and producing offspring without structure. Their tension was rooted in incompatible values rather than open conflict. Demeter, goddess of agriculture and the seasons, sustained civilization through predictable cycles. Poseidon's power disrupted those cycles through flood and earthquake. Where Demeter preserved life through order, Poseidon exposed how fragile that order always was. Hestia, goddess of the hearth and domestic stability, embodied stillness and permanence. She withdrew from conflict entirely. Poseidon existed in direct opposition to what she maintained, dislodging what she anchored. Poseidon's consort was Amphitrite, the goddess of the sea's depths, and a Nereid by origin. Their union established formal rule over the sea and confirmed Poseidon's authority as its king. Amphitrite provided legitimacy, not restraint. The sea remained volatile under their rule. Beyond marriage, Poseidon fathered an extensive and unstable bloodline through numerous divine and mortal women. Many of these unions were coercive, and the resulting offspring did not form a dynasty, but a spread of forces moving outward from his authority. Polyphemus, a cyclops of brute strength and isolation, lived beyond law and social order. When he was blinded by Odysseus, Poseidon answered as a father, turning a single injury into prolonged vengeance. Theseus, a hero associated with kingship and passage, was acknowledged through survival rather than instruction. He is most well known for his victory over the Minotaur within the labyrinth. Divine favor legitimized his rule, but did not restrain his violence or ambition. Triton, a god of the sea's signals and movement, served as Poseidon's herald, calming or stirring waters through sound. He represented rare structure within Poseidon's authority rather than its rule. Orion, a giant associated with excess and domination, was granted the ability to walk upon the sea. Poseidon empowered him without boundary, allowing strength to expand until consequence followed elsewhere. Charybdis, a monster of endless consumption, transformed passage into punishment. Poseidon allowed her to remain, ensuring the sea itself functioned as hazard. Pegasus, a creature embodying uncontrolled motion, was born from Medusa's blood after Poseidon's assault. Power entered the world without guidance or acknowledgement, carrying Poseidon's mark without his restraint. Across Poseidon's bloodline, power appeared without safety and strength without correction. Some children became heroes. Others became monsters. Poseidon did not intervene to stabilize these outcomes. Family did not restrain him. Lineage did not soften him. His blood carried instability wherever it reached. The land that would become Athens stood undecided. It was not yet a city of marble and law, but a settlement pressed between hills and sea, growing fast enough to require protection and permanence. To choose a patron was to choose the force that would shape its future. The decision was understood to be binding. Two gods answered. Poseidon came forward first. He did not speak at length or negotiate terms. He drove his trident into the ground. Stone split. Water surged upward from the earth, violent and immediate, flooding the surrounding land. The display left no doubt about its source. Power had arrived openly and without restraint. As the water settled, its nature revealed itself. It was salt water. It could not be drunk. It could not nourish fields or sustain daily life. What Poseidon offered was force made visible, dominion without stability. Then Athena responded. She did not fracture the land. She planted an olive tree. The act was quiet, almost unimpressive beside the shattered ground and rising water. The tree took root slowly. It promised food, oil, wood, and continuity over generations rather than immediacy. Time was allowed to pass. The gifts were weighed without argument. The salt spring remained powerful but unusable. The olive tree offered less at first, but more with each season that followed. The contrast did not need explanation. The outcome settled gradually, then completely. Athena was chosen. Poseidon did not challenge the judgment. He did not demand it be reversed or confront Athena directly. He withdrew, and the land returned to stillness. The memory did not fade. In time, the coast began to change. Storms arrived out of season. Waters pressed inland. Harbors grew unreliable. The punishment did not fall on the leaders who made the choice, nor on Athena herself. It spread outward, reshaping the territory that believed the decision had ended the matter. Athens endured. It grew into a city of reason, law, and self-control. But the sea never fully yielded. Every voyage carried risk. Every harbor remained conditional. The city learned that wisdom governed within walls, but beyond them, authority belonged to a god who did not forget rejection. Before Medusa was forever changed into the monster she would be remembered as, she had been human. She had served as a priestess in the temple of Athena, bound by vows that demanded chastity, obedience, and separation from ordinary life. The temple had been understood as a protected space. Its authority rested on the assumption that divine law was enough to enforce its boundaries. That assumption failed. Poseidon entered the temple and violated Medusa within it. He forced himself upon her and broke her vow of chastity. The act desecrated the sacred space and shattered the expectation that divine boundaries were inviolable. Poseidon left without consequence. There was no pursuit, no retribution, and no attempt to restore what had been taken. The response did not fall on him. When Athena addressed the violation, she did not challenge Poseidon directly. The authority of the temple had to be preserved, and the disruption had to be removed from it. Medusa was transformed. Her hair became serpents. Her gaze turned lethal. What had once marked her as protected now marked her as dangerous. She was driven from human society and forced into isolation, carrying the weight of the transgression in her body. The temple remained intact. Order appeared restored. The cost was displaced. Medusa survived, but only as something unrecognizable. Her name ceased to refer to a person and became a warning. The story shifted away from the violation and focused instead on the threat she now represented. Years later, when Medusa was killed, the consequences of Poseidon's act surfaced again. From her blood were born Pegasus, a creature embodying uncontrolled motion, and Chrysaor, he who has a golden sword. Creation followed violence without repair or acknowledgement. Power entered the world detached from responsibility. Poseidon did not intervene. He did not deny the origin or accept consequence. The hierarchy remained unchanged. Authority was preserved. The damage had been carried downward. Cassiopeia ruled as queen with confidence that went unchecked. She spoke publicly of her beauty, elevating herself above the Nereids, claiming superiority over beings who existed within Poseidon's domain. The words were not whispered or mistaken. They were declared. The sea heard them. Poseidon responded without addressing Cassiopeia directly. He sent floods that swallowed farmland and settlements along the coast. Storms battered the shoreline. Stability collapsed outward from the sea, not inward from the throne. The land paid for a ruler's speech. When devastation failed to restore balance, Poseidon released Cetus. The creature rose from his domain and moved toward the coast, a living extension of his authority. The message was unmistakable. The offense had not been forgotten, and appeasement had not yet been offered. The oracle spoke plainly. Only sacrifice would end the punishment. Andromeda, Cassiopeia's daughter, was chosen. She was chained to the rocks at the edge of the sea, left exposed to the tide and the waiting monster. Waves struck her body repeatedly as hours passed. The sacrifice was not hidden or symbolic. It was meant to be seen by the sea itself. Submission had to be visible. Cetus emerged as promised. The offering had drawn the consequence into the open. Before the monster could reach her, Perseus intervened. He killed Cetus and freed Andromeda. The act did not provoke Poseidon's retaliation. The sacrifice had already been made. The cost had been demonstrated. Poseidon allowed the resolution to stand. The floods receded. The monster did not return. Cassiopeia survived to witness the outcome of her words, reflected in her daughter's near death. The land recovered slowly, altered, but spared further punishment. The lesson remained intact. Speech carried consequence. Authority responded collectively. Innocence did not guarantee protection. Balance was restored only after submission had been displayed and acknowledged. The walls of Troy were built as punishment, not as favor. After Zeus established himself as king, authority among the Olympians did not settle cleanly. Power had been claimed, but resentment remained. Poseidon had never accepted Zeus's supremacy as natural. The sea surrounded all land and sustained all movement. In Poseidon's view, Zeus ruled from above, while Poseidon ruled what the world actually depended on. Apollo joined the challenge for a different and far more personal reason. Zeus had killed Asclepius, Apollo's son, after Asclepius began restoring mortals from death. The act crossed a boundary Zeus refused to tolerate, and he enforced it without warning or negotiation. Apollo answered directly. He killed the Cyclopes who forged Zeus's thunderbolts, turning grief into open rebellion. His loyalty ended the moment Zeus proved willing to erase bloodlines without appeal. Hera joined them as well, driven by Zeus's repeated violations of marriage and authority within his own household. They did not declare war. Rather, they attempted to remove him from power. While Zeus slept, Poseidon, Apollo, and Hera bound him. The act was physical and deliberate. His body was restrained. His thunderbolt was taken from him. Divine rule was interrupted through containment, echoing the fate Cronus had once suffered. For a brief moment, Zeus was powerless. However, the attempt failed. Thetis, the goddess of water and one of the many Nereids, intervened and summoned Briareus, one of the Hecatoncheires, whose presence alone shattered the conspiracy. Zeus was freed before power could be redistributed or a new order declared. No battle followed. The challenge ended in exposure rather than victory. Zeus did not respond with destruction. He responded with humiliation. Poseidon and Apollo were stripped of autonomy and bound to serve a mortal king for a fixed term. Their power remained intact, but their status was reversed. Gods who commanded fundamental forces were made to labor beneath human authority. The king chosen was Laomedon of Troy. Laomedon demanded defenses that no enemy could breach and even offered payment to the gods. Poseidon shaped the foundations and coastline, anchoring the city against invasion. Apollo set the walls with precision and order. Stone rose into permanence. Troy became untouchable by mortal hands. When the labor ended, payment was owed. Horses, livestock, gold, treasures, as well as worship and honors. Laomedon refused. He dismissed the agreement as optional, treating divine labor as something already owed. The insult was not emotional, it was contractual. A vow had been broken openly after its benefit had already been taken. Apollo withdrew and left the matter behind him. Poseidon did not. He turned from the walls he had built and focused on the coast they depended on. From the sea, he sent a monster against Troy's shoreline. It rose without warning and devastated the land, dragging destruction inland. The walls stood untouched. Everything around them suffered. The city learned what the bargain had truly secured. The walls protected Troy from armies, not from the god who had raised them. Strength became irrelevant once the sea itself turned hostile. Protection became exposure. In a desperate attempt to stop the monster, Laomedon offered up his own daughter, Hesione, as a sacrifice. She was chained to the rocks to appease Poseidon, but that did not deter the monster. It was by sheer luck that Heracles arrived just in time to slay the monster and free Hesione. Only after this did the punishment end. The walls remained. Poseidon's favor did not. Troy would stand for years, but it would never be truly secure. Minos sought authority, not approval. When he contested the throne of Crete, he did not rely on lineage alone. He called on Poseidon to confirm his right to rule, asking for a sign that could not be disputed. Poseidon answered by sending a magnificent bull from the sea, its appearance unmistakable and deliberate. The message was clear. Kingship had been granted on the condition of obedience. The bull was meant to be sacrificed. Minos hesitated. He admired the animal's power and beauty and chose to keep it alive, substituting another offering in its place. The decision was quiet and self-serving. The vow was broken without confrontation, as though Poseidon would not notice a replacement. But he did. Poseidon did not destroy Minos directly. He corrupted the king's household instead. Minos' wife, Pasiphae, was overtaken by an unnatural desire directed toward the bull. The impulse was overwhelming and inescapable. It did not fade with reason or resistance. The household itself became the site of punishment. From that union, the Minotaur was born. The creature was neither fully man nor fully beast, trapped between forms and driven by hunger. Minos hid it beneath the palace in a labyrinth designed to contain what could not be undone. The structure did not erase the consequence, it institutionalized it. Crete became defined by the monster it fed in secret. The punishment extended outward. Athens was forced to send its children as tribute, turning Minos' broken vow into generational suffering for another city. Power remained intact. Kingship continued. The cost was displaced onto the innocent. Poseidon did not intervene further. The bull remained alive. The monster endured. The bloodline carried the damage forward. Minos ruled, but his authority was permanently marked by what he had chosen to spare. And one day, Theseus would come to end what Minos had created. Odysseus left Troy believing the hardest part was over. The war had been survived through endurance and strategy. The sea stood between him and home, familiar and navigable. He did not pray for favor. He assumed passage. That assumption became the offense. When Odysseus landed on the island of the Cyclopes, he entered without invitation and took shelter without permission. The cave belonged to Polyphemus, Poseidon's son. What Odysseus treated as opportunity was, to its owner, intrusion. Polyphemus returned and closed the cave with a stone no men could move. He did not bargain. He did not recognize guest right. He killed and consumed Odysseus's men openly, as though the act required no justification. Strength governed the space. Odysseus waited. He planned. He offered wine, knowing excess would weaken control. When Polyphemus collapsed into sleep, Odysseus and the remaining men drove a sharpened stake into his eye, blinding him. Escape followed through deception rather than force. Odysseus reached the sea and believed the danger had passed. He shouted his name back toward the shore, claiming the act as victory. The declaration was unnecessary. It was deliberate. He chose recognition over safety. Polyphemus heard him and prayed to Poseidon. The plea was simple. If Odysseus was truly Poseidon's enemy, then he should be denied a clean return. Let him wander. Let him arrive late. Let him come home broken, if he came home at all. Poseidon answered. He did not kill Odysseus. He removed time. The sea refused to release him. Storms scattered ships. Landfalls turned hostile. Progress collapsed into repetition. Each attempt to move forward produced delay instead. Years passed. Crew after crew was lost. Hope thinned. Survival continued, but resolution did not. Odysseus learned the shape of Poseidon's punishment through duration rather than violence. The offense was not blinding the Cyclops. It was speaking afterward. Poseidon did not forget the injury. He enforced it without limit. Athena traveled alone through a land that no longer held water. Argos had been struck by drought, its springs exhausted and its rivers reduced to dust. The cause was deliberate. Argos relied on freshwater springs controlled by Poseidon. But over time, the city neglected his worship and failed to maintain proper offerings. As a result, Poseidon had withdrawn freshwater from the region as punishment, leaving the land dependent on what little could still be found. Athena was sent to search for a source that might restore survival. While she searched, she was pursued. A satyr followed her through the dry terrain, closing distance without concern for resistance. Athena fled until flight failed. When escape was no longer possible, she called out, not in prayer, but in appeal, to Poseidon by name. The response was immediate. Poseidon struck the satyr down and drove him away. The intervention was direct and physical. The threat was removed without negotiation or warning. Authority reasserted itself in action rather than promise. Afterward, Poseidon drove his trident into the ground. Fresh water surged upward where none had existed before. A spring broke through the earth, clear and abundant, restoring life to land that had been deliberately denied it. The punishment that had dried Argos was not undone for all, but an exception was made. Athena was not elevated or rewarded publicly. She was protected because she had acknowledged authority and appealed to it directly. The land benefited as a consequence of her survival, not as a reversal of judgment. Poseidon did not remain, but the spring did. The message was precise. Protection was possible within his domain, but only when authority was recognized and invoked. What had been withheld could be restored selectively, without apology or explanation. The Titanomachy began after the Olympians secured control of the world. Zeus and his siblings had overthrown the Titans and divided the cosmos among themselves. Sky, sea, and underworld were claimed. Order was established. That order provoked retaliation. The giants rose to overthrow Olympus. Born of Gaia, they rejected Olympian rule outright and attempted to seize power by force. Their objective was clear. They meant to storm Olympus, kill the gods, and return authority to the earthborn order that preceded them. Poseidon met the giants where land and sea collided. His primary opponent was Polybotes, a giant who fled toward the coast when battle turned against him. Polybotes believed distance from Olympus would save him. He was wrong. Poseidon pursued him across the shoreline. When polyboats reached open ground, Poseidon tore a massive section of land from the earth itself. The island was ripped free and hurled into the sea, crushing polyboats beneath it. The landmass became the island of Nissyros, and the giant remained trapped beneath it. The war did not pause. Other giants attempted to advance across coastal terrain, believing solid ground gave them advantage. Poseidon shattered that assumption. Shorelines split apart, seawater rushed inland, land collapsed into sea without warning. Giants lost footing, orientation, and escape all at once. Where Zeus struck from above and Athena countered through precision, Poseidon removed stability entirely. He did not defeat giants through duel. He buried them, he drowned them, he erased the ground they depended on. The giants were not gathered afterward, they were not displayed. They were sealed beneath geography. When the Titanomachy ended, the world did not return to its former shape. Islands remained where Poseidon had thrown them, coastlines stayed broken, fault lines lingered beneath cities and shores. The damage was not repaired, it became permanent. The land itself carried the memory of the war. Poseidon was worshipped because dependence made avoidance impossible. Sailors prayed before voyages not to earn favor, but to avoid obstruction. Sacrifices were offered at harbors, headlands, and straits where ships were most vulnerable. The goal was never blessing. It was permission to pass without interference. Along coastlines and fault lines, temples rose where his presence was already felt. These were not places of comfort. They were acknowledgments of exposure. Worship functioned as recognition that stability at sea and stability on land were never guaranteed. Poseidon's rituals reflected this relationship. Offerings were practical and urgent. Animals were cast into the water. Libations were poured at the edge of the shore. What mattered was acknowledgement, not devotion. Silence from the sea was success. Fear shaped his cult more than affection. Cities near the coast learned to treat calm as temporary. Earthquakes were understood as reminders rather than accidents. When the ground shook or the sea surged, the cause was not debated. The response was appeasement. Over time, later traditions altered his image. Poseidon was recast as a heroic sea god, a symbol of naval strength and masculine power. His volatility was reframed as temper. His resentment was softened into pride. The conditional nature of his protection faded behind spectacle and iconography. The original myths did not support that version. Poseidon punished broken vows without hesitation. He enforced contracts through destruction. He allowed consequences to persist long after the original offense was forgotten. He protected selectively and withdrew cooperation without warning. He was not a god who ruled through domination alone. He ruled through conditions. The sea moved when he allowed it. The land held when he permitted it. Everything else existed in the space between. To worship Poseidon was not to feel safe. It was to understand why safety was never assumed. The Greeks did not imagine him as cruel. They imagined him as unavoidable. And they were right. Hey everyone, thanks for watching all the way to the end.